The wind screamed across the empty white desert of Antarctica. Snow whipped through the air like sharp blades, cutting visibility to almost nothing. The ice stretched endlessly in every direction, a prison of cold and silence. Few dared to come here, and those who did were men and women of science chasing mysteries that the world above rarely cared to know. This was where NASA had sent its secret team. Officially, they were here for climate research. Unofficially, they were here because of something strange. Weeks earlier, satellites had picked up an anomaly deep under the ice. 2 miles beneath the frozen sheet, signals had been detected, patterns of energy that did not match natural formation. The readings were too exact, too deliberate. At first, it was dismissed as machine error, but the signals grew stronger, almost rhythmic, as if pulsing like a heartbeat. The more they looked, the more undeniable it became. Something was hidden there, and it was not of human origin. Dr. Marcus Hale led the team. He was a man who carried the weight of both curiosity and fear in his sharp eyes. With him were engineers, geologists, and 2 astronauts trained for extreme conditions. They had been told little, only that what they found could change everything. No one said the word alien, but it hung in the air every time the strange signals were mentioned. Their base camp was a cluster of metal containers bolted into the ice. Inside, the air smelled of fuel, sweat, and recycled oxygen. Machines hummed, screens glowed, and the outside storm beat against the walls like a monster trying to get in. The crew had grown uneasy over the past days. Instruments showed spikes of radiation below them, and strange interference broke into their communications. At night, when the wind was quiet, some swore they heard a low vibration coming from the ground. The drilling began at dawn. Massive machines clawed through the ancient layers, melting and cutting with slow precision. Hours turned to days as they cut deeper, the sound echoing in their bones. At first, they struck ice that was thousands of years old, filled with bubbles of air older than civilization itself. Then something changed. The drill hit resistance, not rock, not ice. It was smoother, harder, and strangely warm. The readings went wild. Dr. Hale ordered the drill to stop. The team gathered around the feed, staring at the cameras lowered into the hole. What they saw froze the room. The camera showed a surface unlike anything they had seen before. It was black, smooth, flawless, stretching endlessly. No cracks, no scratches, as if it had been waiting untouched for ages. A strange light shimmered across it, not a reflection, but something alive within the surface itself. The camera trembled, and the lights in the base flickered. For a brief second, the feed distorted, showing symbols, geometric shapes glowing and shifting before clearing again. Silence filled the room. No one spoke. The air itself seemed to thicken. "This is not ice," whispered one of the engineers. "It is not anything on Earth," Dr. Hale said quietly. The ground shook. It was faint, like a sigh from the depths of the world, but enough to rattle cups and instruments. A deep hum filled the air coming from below, vibrating through their bones. Some clutched their ears, others staggered back. The black surface was no longer still. It pulsed gently, like the breathing of a sleeping giant. The storm outside grew worse. Winds howled, snow battered the base, and their communications cut into static. The crew realized they were isolated, trapped with whatever they had uncovered. Fear began to creep into their eyes, though none wanted to admit it. That night, as they reviewed the data, the screens flickered again. For a moment, symbols appeared across every monitor, circles, lines, and stars that twisted and shifted like a language. One of the scientists swore he heard a whisper in his head, though no one else admitted the same. When the light steadied, the words remained burned into their minds. "It is awake." Dr. Hale gathered the team. "Whatever this is, it has been here longer than us. We have found something buried for a reason. The question is, are we supposed to find it now?" No one answered. The hum beneath the ice continued, steady and patient, as though the thing below already knew they had arrived. The drill rested above the black surface. Silent, but the crew knew this was only the beginning. Something had been disturbed. Something that had waited under Antarctica for thousands of years. And now, it was awake. The next morning, the storm had not eased, but the team could not wait. The discovery beneath them demanded answers. Dr. Hale stood in the control room, his face pale in the cold light of the monitors, and gave the order to begin. They lowered a reinforced lift into the shaft they had drilled, a steel cage descending slowly through the frozen walls. The crew chosen for the first descent were 3 men and 2 women, each trained, each silent as they sealed their suits and checked their oxygen. No one spoke of fear, but it weighed heavy in the air. The lift shuddered as it moved down. The sound of the wind above faded, until there was only silence broken by the hum of the metal. Each meter brought them closer to the black surface waiting below. Lights flickered along the walls of ice. Ancient bubbles trapped like ghosts staring at them as they passed. One of the crew muttered a prayer, his voice trembling over the intercom. At 2 miles down, the lift stopped. The chamber revealed by the drilling was larger than expected. The black surface stretched endlessly in every direction, curving as though they were standing inside a buried dome. Their lamps shone across it, but the light seemed to vanish against the smooth material. There was no frost, no cracks. The ice stopped cleanly at the edge of this strange surface, as if nature itself had been cut away to make space for it. Dr. Hale's voice crackled over the radio. "Proceed with caution. Do not make direct contact until scans are complete." They unpacked instruments, scanners, and recorders. The machines whined as they tried to measure the impossible structure. No readings made sense. Temperature registered as constant, higher than the surrounding ice but never changing. Radiation spiked and fell like a heartbeat. The surface seemed to drink sound, their voices echoing strangely as though the walls themselves were shifting. One of the geologists, a young woman named Claire, stepped closer. She brushed her gloved hand across the surface despite the warning. The moment she touched it, the black material shimmered. Symbols appeared beneath her fingers, lines and shapes glowing faintly, moving like liquid light. She gasped and staggered back. The others shouted, asking if she was hurt. Her breathing was ragged. "I heard something," she whispered. A voice. Inside my head, it said, "Welcome but not yet." The team froze. No one knew what to say. Claire looked pale but unharmed. The symbols faded, but the surface now pulsed with a faint glow, as if it had acknowledged them. Dr. Hale ordered them to continue, but every movement felt heavier now. They placed sensors, drilled small probes into the surface, but the material resisted all attempts to penetrate. It was alive with energy, responding only when touched by flesh, ignoring metal and machines. It did not care about their tools. It cared about them. Suddenly, the communication link to the surface cracked with static. Voices bled through the channel, distorted and broken. At first it sounded like interference, but then words formed. Words in English, but spoken in tones too deep to be human. "Who enters? Who disturbs? Who dares?" Panic rippled through the crew. One man ripped off his headset and stumbled back. Another screamed into the microphone, demanding answers. But the voices continued, overlapping as though dozens were speaking at once. Then, just as quickly as it began, silence returned. The team stared at one another. No one wanted to admit they had all heard it. Fear was in their eyes, but something stronger held them there. Curiosity. The hunger that had brought humanity to the moon and beyond now bound them to this alien darkness. Claire stepped forward again, her voice shaking. "It knows us. It is waiting." The ground trembled under their boots. The black surface rippled like water, though it was solid. A section of it folded open, forming a staircase that descended into the unknown. Light poured from within, soft and blue, illuminating the frozen cavern. The path was an invitation. Dr. Hale's voice broke through the silence, firm and steady. "We go in." One by one they stepped onto the alien stair. The surface was solid, warm, humming beneath their feet. The walls shifted as they moved, symbols flowing like veins of fire guiding them deeper. The deeper they went, the colder the air felt, yet the walls remained untouched by frost. It was as if this place did not belong to the same world. The tunnel widened into a chamber vast enough to swallow their entire base camp. Towers of dark crystal rose from the ground, glowing faintly, their tops lost in shadow. The air vibrated with energy, filling their chests with a heavy pressure. Machines rested around them, dormant shapes with curves and angles their minds could barely comprehend. Then the lights of the chamber flared. The machine stirred. A sound like 1,000 voices whispered in unison, rising from the walls and the air itself. The crew froze, unable to breathe, unable to move. A beam of light descended from the ceiling, scanning each of them in turn. It passed over their helmets, their suits, their tools, ignoring them all. It focused only on their bodies, their faces, their eyes. It lingered on Claire, then moved on. Finally it stopped, hovering in front of the group. The voices merged into one, clear and cold. "You are late." The chamber went silent. The beam vanished, and the black crystal towers began to awaken. The words hung in the frozen air like a blade. None of the crew spoke. Their breaths echoed inside their helmets, shallow and unsteady. The chamber around them pulsed with light, the black crystal towers beating like 1,000 hearts waking from a long sleep. Energy rippled across the walls, symbols flaring to life, flowing in endless patterns that shifted faster than their eyes could follow. Dr. Hale tried to steady his voice. "This is impossible. It is speaking." No one answered. Claire's eyes were wide, reflecting the glow of alien light. She felt the words inside her skull rather than in her ears, as if the chamber itself had become her thoughts. The others shifted nervously, their hands gripping useless scanners and weapons. For the first time, they realized how small they were. A shape unfolded at the far side of the chamber. What they had thought was a wall was actually a machine hidden until now. It stretched upward, towering like a figure of shadow and steel. Parts of it hovered, pieces disconnected but still moving together as though bound by invisible strings. A deep light flared within it, scanning each human one by one. The beam lingered on Marcus Hale. He stood frozen, his hands clenched at his sides. The voice returned, deeper now, echoing from every direction. "You are not the first. You are not prepared." The words chilled them. "That not the first? What did it mean?" Claire stepped forward without thinking. Her voice shook, but her curiosity overpowered her fear. "What are you? Why are you here?" The chamber responded with silence. Then suddenly, the holographic constellations bloomed above them. Stars burned in patterns across the air, galaxies unfolding in impossible detail. They saw systems they had never charted, worlds spinning in colors beyond human sight. Each light pulsed as though alive, then dimmed again until one remained. It was Earth. The hologram of their planet floated above the chamber, glowing faintly. The continents were recognizable, though older, somehow primitive, wild. The ocean surged across it in endless waves. Then the image shifted. Earth through the ages. Dinosaurs roamed across green valleys. Mammoths thundered through ice fields. Ancient humans gathered around fires, lifting crude tools. Civilizations rose and fell in blinks of light. The chamber had watched it all. Dr. Hale whispered the truth no one wanted to admit. "It has been here the entire time, watching us." The machine pulsed in agreement. Images changed again. They saw cities burning, wars raging, mushroom clouds blooming across the sky. Humanity's cruelty played out above their heads, every horror recorded. The voice returned, softer but colder. "You destroy. You repeat. You do not learn." The crew stood in silence, shame heavy in their chests. One of the men shook his head violently, anger sparking. "We are more than that. You cannot judge us by the worst of our history." His voice cracked, but it echoed against the chamber walls. The machine's light focused on him. He screamed suddenly, his body lifting off the ground. The crew reached out helplessly as he was pulled into the air, engulfed by white fire. His cry echoed once, then he was gone. Nothing remained. The chamber spoke again. "Unworthy sample, removed." The silence that followed was worse than the scream. The crew staggered back, terror in their eyes. Claire sobbed quietly, her hands pressed to her helmet. Dr. Hale forced his voice to rise, though his throat was dry. "Why are you doing this? What do you want from us?" The response came like thunder. "We measure, we decide. This station is a gate. Your kind stands at the edge. You are late." The holographic stars shifted once more. This time signals of light extended outward from Earth, shooting into the dark. They realized these were transmissions, waves of energy leaving the planet. The station was not only watching, it was sending, Claire gasped. "It is calling something." The word sent a chill down all their spines. The crew felt the weight of the truth pressing on them. This was not just a relic, not just a forgotten machine buried under ice. It was alive, aware, and connected. And now it was awake again. Dr. Hale's voice dropped low, barely a whisper. "Something is coming." The chamber lights intensified. The towers of crystal thrummed louder, their glow reflecting in the ice above. The tunnel they had entered sealed behind them, closing like the jaws of a trap. They were no longer explorers. They were prisoners inside an ancient judgment hall. The machine's deep light focused on Claire once again. Her knees buckled, but she did not run. The voice inside her head grew stronger, filling every corner of her mind. "Your kind is fragile. Your kind is violent. But your kind adapts." She trembled, tears streaking her face inside the helmet. She whispered, "Are you going to destroy us?" The answer was neither yes nor no. Judgment is not complete. The crew stared at one another, trapped between fear and desperation. They had awakened something far older and far more powerful than themselves. Now the fate of humanity hung on what came next. And the station, 2 miles beneath the Antarctic ice, continued to awaken. The chamber pulsed with a rhythm like the beating of a heart. Every wall, every tower of black crystal glowed brighter, as if the station had finally roused itself from slumber. The crew huddled together, their breathing loud in the helmets, eyes wide as they watched the living architecture shift and move. No one dared speak. The silence felt heavier than words, broken only when the voice returned, resonating not through the air but through their very skulls. You are measured. You are witnessed. You are late. The holographic image of Earth still hung above them, but now it began to fracture into pieces. Layers peeled back, time unfolding again, but slower this time, almost surgical. They saw oceans forming, continents splitting, life crawling from the sea. Then the image shifted forward. Dinosaurs hunted, thundered, vanished. Ice ages came and went. Human ancestors crouched in caves, their fires small and fragile against the endless night. With every stage, the station seemed to whisper its cold judgment. Claire stared at the images, her voice hollow. It has been here forever, watching everything, recording everything. One of the engineers shook his head violently, denial in his eyes. No, this is impossible. Nothing survives millions of years. Nothing can... His words stopped as the machine turned its light on him. He collapsed to the ground, screaming, clutching his head. When the light dimmed, he was motionless. His body lay still in the glow of alien stars, his helmet fogging with his last breath. The crew backed away, fear twisting their faces. Dr. Hale forced himself forward, his voice shaking but steady. Why are you showing us this? What are you, guardian? Prisoner? God? The answer came slowly, each word vibrating like thunder under the ice. Observer, gatekeeper, judge. The holographic Earth shifted once again. This time the images cut deeper, showing humanity's rise, villages turning into cities, empires rising and falling in fire. The towers of black crystal hummed louder as the visions turned darker. Slavery, conquest, wars, and endless bloodshed. The mushroom cloud of a nuclear blast expanded above their heads, filling the chamber with a silent roar. The voice followed, colder than ice. You destroy. You repeat. You do not learn. The crew's heart sank under the weight of the vision. Claire pressed her hands to her helmet, tears streaming down her face. We are more than that, she whispered, but her voice was lost in the enormity of the judgment. Then, suddenly, the visions changed. Scenes of kindness bloomed across the chamber, a child helping another up from the ground, villagers sharing food in famine, doctors saving lives on battlefields, astronauts reaching out to touch the stars together. For the first time, the machine seemed uncertain, its light flickering. The voice spoke again, quieter, almost thoughtful. You are violent. But you adapt. You survive. You grow. Dr. Hale seized the chance. That is what makes us human. We learn from pain. We are not perfect, but we endure, we change. You have seen it. You must know it. The chamber trembled as if considering his words. The black crystals shifted, opening new pathways across the floor. At the far end of the hall, a new structure rose, a circular platform glowing with white light. Symbols ran across its surface, shifting like waves. Claire stepped closer, her voice a whisper. It wants us to stand there. Hale looked at the others. Their faces were pale, haunted, but none moved to resist. They had come this far. To turn back was no longer possible. Together they stepped onto the glowing platform. The air grew heavy, pressing against their chests until they struggled to breathe. The symbols blazed brighter, wrapping around them in spirals of fire and light. And then the walls themselves melted away. They stood suspended in darkness, surrounded by stars. The chamber was gone, replaced by a vast sky filled with constellations. Shadows moved among the stars, figures tall and indistinct, their forms shifting like smoke. Their presence pressed down on the crew with unbearable weight, older and vaster than anything human. One of the shadows leaned forward. It spoke, but the words were felt rather than heard. This is not the first age. Others have come before. They reached beyond their world. They were measured. They were removed, Claire trembled. Removed? You mean destroyed? The silence was answer enough. The shadow continued. This world was given time, watched, tested. Now the measure is complete. The call has been sent. Dr. Hale's stomach dropped. He lifted his eyes toward the endless stars. Somewhere out there, something had heard. Something was already on its way. The vision broke. The chamber returned. The crew gasped for air as the platform dimmed beneath their feet. The black crystal towers now glowed fully alive, humming with energy. The tunnel behind them sealed completely, the ice above groaning as if under pressure. They were trapped, deep beneath Antarctica, and something greater than them had begun to move. The voice spoke once more, final and certain. Judgment begins. And then one of the crew vanished in a flash of light, his scream echoing in the hollow dark. The scream still echoed long after the light vanished. The crew stood frozen on the glowing platform, their faces pale behind fogged helmets, every heartbeat pounding like drums in their ears. One of their own had been erased, pulled into nothingness as if he had never existed. Claire's hand shook as she clutched the straps of her suit. The black crystal towers hummed louder, their vibrations crawling up through the floor into the bones of the survivors. They were no longer explorers. They were test subjects inside a machine that had been waiting for them for longer than history remembered. Dr. Hale forced his body to move, though his legs trembled. He stepped forward, lifting his eyes to the towering shapes that surrounded them. His voice cracked but held strength. If you judge us, then you must judge all of us. We are not only destruction. We are not only violence. We are more than the worst you have seen. The chamber pulsed in answer. The hologram of Earth reappeared above them, spinning slowly, covered in scars of war and fire. But as it turned, new images flickered into view. Humans climbing mountains, building bridges, reaching hands across divides. It was as though the machine weighed both sides of a scale, deciding which part of humanity carried greater weight. The shadows of the judges moved again, their immense forms drifting across the star-filled vision. Their voices merged into one deeper than thunder, resonating in the marrow of the crew. Show us, prove what you are. Prove why this world must continue. The platform beneath their feet shifted violently. The crew stumbled as the white light stretched outward, reshaping the floor into a circle surrounded by walls of fire and shadow. The holographic stars spun above them, but now they formed an arena. Shapes began to appear in the fire. Creatures of past ages, visions of humanity's darkest creations. War machines, beasts of extinction, armies of faceless soldiers with weapons raised. The test had begun. Claire cried out as the first of the visions lunged toward them. A monstrous figure, half machine, half predator, its claws scraping across the platform. The crew fired their weapons in panic, though they knew bullets meant nothing against illusions. Yet the creature recoiled as if their defiance itself carried weight. The machine was not testing their strength. It was testing their will. Dr. Hale shouted over the chaos. Do not run. Stand together. Show it what makes us human. They formed a circle, their backs to one another as the visions attacked. Flames roared, shadows struck. But they fought with every ounce of spirit they had, not with weapons alone, but with courage. They pulled each other to their feet when one stumbled, shielded one another when the shadows closed in. Their unity became their shield, their refusal to abandon each other, the one weapon the station could not measure with numbers or machines. The arena trembled. The shadows slowed. The monstrous shapes faltered, dissolving into smoke. The chamber's light dimmed, then flared brighter than before. The voice of the station filled their skulls. Together, endure, defy. The images above shifted once more. Now Earth shone in color, its blues and greens brighter, its scars fading. The station was no longer only replaying the past. It was showing a possible future. A world healed, a species united, reaching beyond their star, not in conquest but in hope. Claire fell to her knees, tears streaking down her face. It is listening, she whispered. It is giving us a chance. But even as hope flickered, the shadows of the judges moved again, their massive forms looming overhead. The voice deepened, final and unyielding. Your chance is not yet earned. The call cannot be undone. They are coming. The crew froze. They looked up into the holographic stars, and there they saw it. Points of light moving toward Earth, fast and deliberate. Whoever had built the station had heard the signal. They were on their way. Dr. Hale raised his face to the sky, his voice steady, though despair clawed at him. Then let them come. Let them see us as we are now, not as we were before. If judgment is here, then humanity will face it together. The chamber answered with silence. The glowing platform dimmed beneath their feet. The black towers thrummed with rising energy, and the tunnel above sealed forever. The station had made its call. Humanity's fate no longer rested only with this crew, but with all of Earth. And as the shadows of the judges dissolved into the stars, a final whisper slid into their minds, cold and vast. Judgment has begun.